Am I on now? Okay.
Fish balls swim in the water.
It is now 7 o'clock, and I'll call this meeting to order. Can I please get a roll call?
There are 6 counselors present. Counselor Jacobson is absent.
Can everyone please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under item 3A, we have a presentation of the Citizen Citation for Heroism to Luis A. Mendoza.
Okay, if we could have Chief Liggett and Deputy Chief Griffin come forward, please.
Good evening, City Council.
Good evening.
On May 24th, 2019, at approximately 3:33 a.m., we responded to a multi-family dwelling fire at 947 Oak Street. What ensued after the time of call was some acts of heroism that we'd like to recognize this evening. And what I'd like to do first is invite our honoree to the podium, and Deputy Chief Griffin will read the citation. Would you invite him up, please?
Mr. Luis A. Mendoza, please come down. Luis, I would like to present to you the Citizen Citation for Heroism awarded to Mr. Luis A. Mendoza for an act of bravery and heroism demonstrated on May 24, 2019 while putting his own life safety at risk to save the life of another. Mr. Mendoza was awakened by what sounded like fire crackling outside his duplex. Upon opening his rear door, he noticed the heavy fire and smoke trying to enter the duplex. Mr. Mendoza ran to the basement duplex to alert the mom, who was asleep in the bedroom with her 2 children. Upon attempting to rescue the mother and her 2 children, Mr. Mendoza found the exit stairway and door consumed by flames and smoke. Mr. Mendoza broke a small basement window and helped the mother and her 2 children escape the burning home through the window. After rescuing the occupants, Mr. Mendoza then ran up the burning stairwell through the intense heat and smoke to attempt to rescue his own dog. Mr. Mendoza was unable to locate his dog and was forced to exit the home due to the intensity of the fire. Mr. Mendoza received moderate burns to his own body while escaping the home. Luis A. Mendoza's selfless act is a demonstration of bravery and heroism and reflects with the honor of Mr. Mendoza's dedication to humanity that is an unviable example of the highest traditions of the citizen and patriot. Thank you for this incredible act of humanity given under my hand this first day of July 2019, signed by Chief Liggett.
Did you want to say something, Mr. Mendoza?
I just wanted to give thanks to everybody that came out and gave a hand to us and helped out, put the fire out, put everything in order again. And I did end up getting my dog back. He ended up coming.
Oh, yay!
He ended up coming back by himself. Later on that night, he was found in the yard by himself. So that's a good. That's a.
And I would just like to say on behalf of our council, we thank you for your bravery and for your citizenship, and we need more citizens just like you.
Appreciate it.
We have a number of public hearings tonight, and while you're obviously welcome to stay for the entire meeting, you are under no obligation to do so. But thank you again.
Yes.
In other words, on to less exciting items. Item 4A, consideration of substitute amendment number 1, ordinance number 3656 to amend section 7.243 sub 3 and to amend section 6.2.8 of the zoning ordinance, chapter 19 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit pertaining to livestock. This is first reading.
Our Community Development Director, Julie Christensen, will provide an overview at this time.
So the Beloit Public Library is requesting an amendment to the city ordinances to allow for city manager approval for livestock at the library to enhance programming. The library's mission is to provide enriching and inspiring learning opportunities for all members of our diverse community. Programming that includes animals, birds, reptiles, bugs can provide a unique learning opportunity to our community that may not otherwise experience such programming and interaction with animals and their owners. The proposed changes would allow the city manager to temporarily authorize the presence of livestock in the city limits for various community events, such as temporary petting zoos or educational displays. Library staff worked with the city manager and city attorney regarding this request. And although this request originated with the library, it will apply to special events citywide, such as petting zoos during church and school events. Livestock will continue to be permitted on a permanent basis only in the Development Holding Zoning District or in accordance with a valid backyard chicken permit. Planning Commission reviewed this item at their last meeting and voted unanimously to recommend approval, subject to modifying the ordinance so that it was clear that the authorization by the city manager can only temporarily allow livestock, and therefore the attached ordinance has been revised and labeled as substitute amendment number 1. This is on your agenda for a public hearing and first reading tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. At this time, the public hearing is open. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor please come forward? Would anyone wishing to speak in favor come forward? Final call. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor please come forward? Now, at this time, would anyone opposed please come forward? Would anyone opposed please come forward? Thank you. Can you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Mary Ann Sven, 1131 Richard Street, Beloit. I don't know if I'm totally against this, but I would really caution the city that if you start allowing petting zoos or any type of animal-related issues, that you keep an eye on them so that they're not out in the heat, they're not without water. You know, everything suffers in the heat. And if nobody is there, I know you can say, well, the owners would watch out for them, but sometimes the owners don't. So if the city would allow this, the city would be responsible in certain ways. So just, you know, I don't know if we have a community officer that could drive by just to watch out for it. I personally don't like them. I feel bad for the animals, but a lot of people do like them. So if you allow it, keep an eye on them, please. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else oppose please come forward? Final call. Would anyone oppose please come forward? The public hearing is now closed. Now can I have a motion to approve the substitute amendment, but I'll back up because I don't know if counselors would be willing to move this to the second reading, or what are our thoughts?
I'd move to suspend the rules to second reading.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion by Anderson, second by Preschel. Any discussion at this time? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Now you need a motion to adopt.
Can I have a motion to adopt the amendment?
I so move.
Okay, there's a first by Forbeck. Is there a second? Second. Second by Counselor Levy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 4B is consideration of Resolution 2019-81, approving a conditional use permit to allow community service use in a C2 neighborhood commercial district for the property located at 2034 Liberty Avenue.
Community Development Director Christensen will give us an overview.
Linda Ward, on behalf of WB Kennedy Lodge, has filed this application for a conditional use permit to allow community service use in the C2 neighborhood commercial district for the property located at 2034 Liberty Avenue. They are requesting to use the existing building for the location of a fraternal organization, which is currently located at 1111 Prince Hall Drive. They're looking for a new location. The property is a half acre in area and includes a 4,165 square foot retail building and a 3,500 square foot storage warehouse, along with parking areas that are both gravel and asphalt. The property was previously occupied by custom bookbinding, and the warehouse was used for storage distribution functions. There is a driveway on Liberty that serves the property, which is located within an unimproved public right-of-way, which is shown on the attached map. One business currently operates on this property, Rock City Art Complex. So they're proposing to use that as, that's where their lodge will be. This is considered a community service use, so it requires a conditional use. This was reviewed by Plan Commission at their last meeting and was recommended for approval subject to the conditions listed in the resolution and subject to the conditional use permit decision form. So it was recommended for approval subject to the conditions of that this authorizes a community service organization to utilize existing 4,165 square foot building and 3,500 square foot storage warehouse on the subject property, subject to the conditions below. All gravel areas on the subject property and the adjacent unimproved right-of-way on which the driveway is located shall be paved to the city engineer standards with asphalt or concrete to control dust by September 1st, 2019. And then just our standard about major changes coming back to the public process and minor changes being approved administratively. And then the applicant is formally advised of the following additional ordinance requirements. As required by the sign ordinance, the abandoned sign along Liberty shall be professionally covered or replaced to reflect the current business. Businesses to avoid public confusion by September 1st. As required by the fire code, compliance with assembly occupancy-based regulations as directed by the building official and fire inspection is required to promote fire safety by September 1st. As required by the zoning ordinance, parking shall be provided in the amount of 30% of building capacity. Based on the 25 parking stalls provided on the site plan, the maximum occupancy cannot exceed 83 people. As required by the wastewater treatment ordinance, floor drains in the warehouse must be connected to public sanitary sewer or removed by September 1st. And Plan Commission did ask them if they were prepared to meet all the conditions, and they said that they were, and that they had already kind of started working on what they would have to do to comply with the conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. At this time, the public hearing is open. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward? Would anyone wishing to speak, please come forward? Final call. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward at this time. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Cynthia McNeese, 2009 North Street. I am in favor of this property to be put to good use and to be maintained and an asset to our neighborhood. My concern is the sale or use of alcohol at the establishment, and if that's allowed in the C2. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe I had the final call, asking if anyone would be speaking in favor. Can you please come down and state your name and address for the record, please?
Marianne Sven, 1131 Richard Street, Beloit. I'm also in favor of good use for this property. It is my understanding that they plan to use alcohol there, but not sell it. And I'm not sure if they have to have a permit for any time that alcohol is present on the premises. If they are a private organization or a community service organization, I don't know the difference, but that's what my understanding is. And if they are required to do all of the conditional, or the conditions of the conditional use, that I hope that they will make sure that that's done. I hope the city will make sure that that's done. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone opposed please come forward at this time? Would anyone opposed please come forward? Final call. Would anyone opposed please come forward? The public hearing is now closed. Can I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, it was a motion made by Levy, a second by Forbeck. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Question. A couple of questions. Yeah, I just have, Madam President, I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead,
if I may.
Counselor Levy.
First of all, Julie, I just want to be consistent with my questioning that the last time we had individuals here looking at this property, I just want to make sure that we're asking the applicant here to meet some of the same requirements. I know that it's a different type of business, but we're asking them to meet the same requirements as we asked the other applicant, correct?
Yeah, we are making them pave and remove the drain. There's some additional requirements because they're an assembly use that they'll have to do, that the other use didn't have to do. And there's some conditions like the unregistered motor vehicles that weren't applied to them because it was applied to the last one because they were parking cars all over.
Okay.
So many of the same conditions are in place as the last one. And then there's some additional requirements, ordinance requirements related to the assembly use.
Okay, thank you. And then if there's a representative from WB Kennedy, if I could ask them a question.
Thank you, Counselor Levy. Gentlemen, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Greetings. My name is Lance Baskin, 1753 Fayette Avenue, Beloit.
Thank you. The warehouse, I know we had issues with that, as Julie said before. Do you have plans for that warehouse?
Our initial plans for the warehouse will be for storage mainly. I do know the conditions of the facility now. I can assure you there will not be cars stored there and anything of that nature. Our long-range plan for that facility, or that part of the facility, is to someday make it into a banquet room.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask the same questions I asked the other applicant. So with the deadlines or the timelines, do you see any problem meeting the timelines that we need you to complete the projects?
After consulting with some of my other brothers, we may need an extension on a couple of those requirements.
Okay.
The reason being is, of course, our building is being purchased from ABC. So there is contingent upon the sale of our building as to when we'll be able to go into this current establishment.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Ward, I don't know if you want to state your name and address for the record, and you may want to say something as well.
My name is Walter E. Ward, 620 Carroll Drive, Beloit. I am the chairperson. He's pretty much covered everything we have to say. We won't be leasing out anything because that question did come up, but we will be having it as a fraternal organization like we have right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Levy, a second by Forbeck. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? With that said, motion carries.
Item 4C is a consideration of a resolution 2019-52 approving a planned unit development master land use plan for the property located at 2426 Prairie Avenue.
Community Development Director, Julie Christensen, can you give us an overview, please?
Sure. Aaron Nielsen of Orem Contracting has applied for this planned unit development, and he also approved for the comprehensive plan amendment that you looked at your last meeting and is on this agenda later. So what they're proposing to do, they've submitted a PUD master land use plan, which is attached to the report. The proposed redevelopment includes utilizing the existing building for a contractor office with additional tenant office space, a mechanic shop, outdoor storage, and in the future, duplexes along the south side of the property. So the zoning is currently PLI, Public Lands and Institutions, and there's also a proposed rezoning to PUD, Planned Unit Development, because in order to do a Planned Unit Development, you have to have approval of the Master Land Use Plan, followed by the rezoning to Planned Unit Development. And so they have submitted those, which is also on your agenda. And so Plan Commission reviewed this item on May 8th and voted unanimously to recommend approval, subject to the conditions which are recommended by staff, which are that this approval authorizes the contractor office, limited vehicle service for contracting company only, two-family residential, and C1 office district zoning uses. All new two-family residential development must maintain a minimum of 30 feet from the PUD district boundaries, in addition to the R2 two-family zoning district development standards and height requirements. The maximum building coverage is the current commercial footprint plus 3 duplexes with access only allowed on Virginia Street. No additional commercial development can occur without a PUD amendment. The PUD must maintain 15% of the gross land area as open space. Mature trees on site must be preserved to the maximum extent possible or replaced on site elsewhere. The access road from Prairie Avenue must remain obstruction-free to provide adequate turnaround access for emergency services. No additional access points will be granted along Prairie. The rear parking area and accessory structure must be screened and barbed wire removed by August 1st. The existing fence can be modified with privacy slats or removed to install a privacy fence. The business hours may only operate from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. each day to prevent disruption to the adjacent residences. And then our standard condition of major changes coming back through this public process and minor changes being approved administratively. And the way he explained it at the Plan Commission meeting is that he will be moving his current contracting business that's at Park and Elmwood over into the city of Beloit.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. At this time, the public hearing is open. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor please come forward? Would anyone wishing to speak in favor please come forward at this time? Final call. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor please come forward? Would anyone oppose please come forward? Would anyone oppose please come forward at this time? Final call. Would anyone oppose please come forward? The public hearing is now closed. Can I have a motion to approve? Anderson, we have a motion by Anderson, a second by Forbeck. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 4D is consideration of ordinance 3646, amending the zoning district map for the property located at 2426 Prairie Avenue. This is first reading.
Okay.
This is the second step in the PUD process, so this is the rezoning from PLI, Public Lands and Institutions, to Planned Unit Development. This is on your agenda for public hearing and first reading.
Okay. Okay. At this time, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor please come forward? Would anyone wishing to speak in favor please come forward at this time? Final call. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor please come forward? Would anyone oppose please come forward? Would anyone oppose please come forward at this time? Final call. Would anyone oppose please come forward? The public hearing is now closed. Can I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Okay, is a first by Forbeck. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Anderson. All,
This is a first reading. I'm sorry, Madam President. This is a first reading, so you would either suspend the rules or get a layover.
right. So can I have a motion to suspend the rules?
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion by Forbeck. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Anderson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that said, motion carries. Now we need to vote on the motion. Do I have a motion on the floor?
I do. I motion that this be accepted.
Okay, I have a motion by Forbeck. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have now reached the point in the agenda for residents to speak to the council about issues that are coming before us or may come before us in the future. Council members may not act on any requests at this meeting, but may refer speaker to staff for assistance. We ask that you hold your comments to 3 minutes or less and refrain from personal attacks of any kind. Public comment is a privilege, and we expect everyone to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Speakers are asked to complete a public comment form and turn in prior to this meeting. Each individual will be invited to the podium and asked to state your name and address for the record. Now, we do have our first speaker, and our first speaker is Mary Swim.
A few weeks at Marianne Sven, 1131 Richard Street, Beloit.
Thank you.
A few weeks back, I came before you with a petition that the Prairie Avenue Veterinary Hospital passed around there at the clinic. And that was asking that you not put medians on Prairie Avenue. That fell on deaf ears, and we are going ahead with the medians. So I'm here now to tell you that it's a mess out there, that there are things happening to the entrance of the Prairie Vet Clinic, and it's not a pleasant, you're not able to go in safely, you're not able to leave safely. I know that you can't turn left, but even trying to go in there right, it's bad. That's not the only area that's bad out there, but that's of prime concern to me. I don't work there or anything, but I doctor there, take my animals there. So I'd like you to please look into this and do whatever is necessary to keep that entrance open. And also the traffic flow is backed up. Oftentimes you have to wait while traffic is coming from the north and going that direction. Since that's the way that I have to go to get there now, I have to go that way. And if you're in a hurry and you're worried about your animal, it's just a big, bad situation. So please look into this and make sure that at least that entrance and probably all the other businesses out there that are suffering because of this, keep them open too. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to address the council this evening? Okay. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dorothy Harrell. I reside at 2284 Boulder Court. Madam, I'm sorry I did not sign a sheet to speak this evening. Two things I just wanted to briefly mention and bring to your attention. One of them is a section of the East Lawn Cemetery on the north part of the cemetery on the east side, Section 5, which is a part of the cemetery that was originally designated for blacks to be buried in. There seems to be a need for some more care in that section. I want to thank the city manager, Lori Luther, who's responded very favorably already this evening as soon as the concern came to her. And like I said to her, it's not being accusatory, it's just bringing something to your attention. And one of the other things that we've done is discuss with the youth branch of the NAACP that they would maybe adopt that as part of a civic project for themselves. So in the interest of loving our community, we're also willing to help. The other thing I wanted to touch on briefly was the Citywide Sports League. They have about 250 students who are in that, children who are in that softball league. But they also had to turn away about 50 students because they didn't have enough volunteers. Now, this is a volunteer organization. No one, absolutely no one gets paid for the work they do with this Citywide Softball League. However, because of the number of youth that are now involved in the program, they are in need of financial assistance, and I just want to bring that to the council's attention so that at the appropriate time you take that under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wanting to address the council at this time? Please come forward. If there are no other public comments, we will go on to item 6, consent agenda.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda.
Would any counselor like anything removed from the consent agenda? The consent agenda consists of items 6A through 6D. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Levy. We have a second by Blakely. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7A, please.
Consideration of Resolution 2019-91 for approval denial of applications for an alcohol beverage operator or bartender's license for the years 2019 to 2021. You have before you this evening 35 applications being recommended for approval and 0 for denial.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve item 7A, please?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Anderson. We have a second by Forbeck. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that said, motion carries.
Item 8A is consideration of ordinance 3647 to change the future land use map of the comprehensive plan for two-family townhouse residential to planned mixed use for the property located at 2426 Prairie Avenue. This is second reading.
This is the second reading, can I have a motion to approve item 8A, please? Okay.
Second.
Okay, hang on one second. Okay, we have a motion by Prussia. We have a second by Forbeck. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? With that said, motion carries.
8B is consideration of ordinance number 3652 to amend sections 1.852A, 1.853C, and 1.54A of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit pertaining to the school district appointees to the library board. This is second reading.
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion by Forbeck. We have a second by Levy. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
8C is consideration of ordinance number 3654 to amend section 1887A of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit pertaining to the regular meeting time for the Police and Fire Commission. This is second reading.
Okay, we have a motion by Levy. Is there a second? Second by Forbeck. Any discussion? Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out they're moving, they're expanding the range of times that the meetings can take place as early as 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm just hoping that we don't hear any, we haven't heard anything, and I haven't heard anything, but I just hope in the future we don't hear a complaint that they're not meeting at a time that's convenient for people who have to work. And that's always consideration. That's one of the reasons we see these meeting times we have, and having been on the committee on committees back in whenever that great past life was, I can attest that that was a consideration we gave to those meeting times. So just going forward, I'm perfectly okay supporting it. I just want to know the unintended consequences that we may, see down the road. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Prushel. We have a
Madam President, may I just speak to that comment?
Go ahead, Attorney.
The commissioners wanted me to point out that they are very open and receptive to any of the public comment or input into any of their meetings, and should a meeting that would require, we expect a lot of input to happen, they certainly would work to accommodate that. We've had the 5:30 start time for about 3 years now, and we have very, very little public input, in fact, hardly any, at those meetings. And so I believe the 4:30 start time will work, but they are certainly willing to amend their schedule for any particular needs that happen, or adjust it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Councilor Blakely, you had a comment.
Yes, I wanted to ask the attorney to clarify just a bit further. Passing the ordinance would give them the opportunity to hold a meeting as early as 4:30, but if need be.
Correct. The regular meetings would start no sooner than 4:30 and no later than 8 p.m. for their regular meetings. Special meetings can happen at any time, and all of our meetings are properly noticed. That include the location as well as the time.
In a sense, this just opens the window of time for them.
It does, and it allows more flexibility for the commissioners as a whole to set that meeting start time based upon the membership of that commission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we have a first by Levy, we have a second by Forbeck. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? With that said, motion carries.
There are no appointments, so we'd move on to councilor activities and upcoming events.
We'll start with Councilor Prushel.
Well, first of all, I attended the Walter Knight dedication ceremony and took quite a few photos. And it was a good day for photos. It was a great event, and there was a lot of people there. Judging by the reaction to it, there was a lot of people in this whole area that followed that, and we're quite pleased to see that happen with Walter being honored. And then I went over to the Juneteenth event, and that was pretty cool, and thanks to Kevin for recommending the catfish nuggets. Appreciate that. Glad I got to have those. They were worth waiting for. And then now coming up next week, we've got the annual BJSO Pops on the Rock. We're going to honor the Vietnam veterans. It's going to be a big day. Hopefully we'll have good weather. And this is something that, this is like a thing that you really can't say you're from Beloit until you've done this. just like going to Tilly's or some of the other things that are uniquely Beloit. This is one of those things, you can't really say, I'm from Beloit until you've been to one of these and done this. And I would recommend, and I always do recommend, that you park your car over by the high school somewhere over on the West Bank and walk over, sit down, enjoy the concert, enjoy the fireworks, walk up the North Bank, back down. By the time you get to your car, the crowds are all gone. You can just drive off on your way. It's a great way to experience the fireworks and the concert and stuff. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Puschel. Now we'll have some activities from Councilor Blakely.
I just wanted to mention that in an effort to make Beloit greener, and it's good to be green, it's not so hard to be green, I've been plogging, which just means picking up trash as I go out for an exercise walk or jog. And I brought in these mugs for the city manager too, Laura, you didn't know this, so that we up here can gradually start replacing our plastic water bottles with these permanent bottles so that we make for less plastic being discarded in the world. I'm looking forward to the 4th of July, hoping the weather will hold. We'll hear more about all that in a few minutes. And I enjoyed Juneteenth. I had a great time with the Beloit Historical Society people. And lots of visitors came over to look through and see pictures of their ancestors, fathers, grandmothers, who had traveled up north from the south during the time of the Great Migration period, which went all the way from 1910 to 1970. So Juneteenth was a welcome event, and I was really impressed with the turnout. And I saw a couple of friends from Bethel AME and enjoyed the music. And I did not hear about the fish nuggets in time to do me any good, but that's okay. I'll get over it.
Thank you, Councilor Blakely. Now, Councilor Levy. I won't say no report. Councilor Forbeck.
Well, I also was just thrilled, thank you, to attend Walter Knight's event. And wow, to see he and his wife there and with his kids and grandchildren, I was just proud to be a part of it. Those are the wonderful events that Beloit has always had, and we continue to have them. So anyway, that was great. And of course, my favorite, the farmer's market. I've been doing that and going out and around and enjoying talking with everybody there. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Forbeck. Vice President Anderson.
Thank you. Just a couple things that haven't been mentioned. One of the things I attended was the Yellow Brick Road does a monthly film showing at the public library, and they showed the movie Milk about Harvey Milk, the first openly gay elected official in the country. I've been meaning to watch it, so this is a great chance to use one of our public buildings to actually experience it. And then another event that I went to at the public library was put on by Linda Fair about the history of African Americans in Beloit. And I will say she is a great presenter, and if anyone has ever tried to look into Beloit history or any community history, it is very tedious, it's time consuming, it takes a lot of effort. Google does not help you much with Beloit history, so she spent a lot of hours, and I give her credit for that. And if you haven't listened to her speech and her story about it, please do. It's really amazing talking about the trailblazers in our community and just talking about a lot of firsts and why a lot of people came up here to the city of Beloit. So it was awesome. I really appreciate her for doing that. Just for people, as Kevin says, the millions of people watching, this is the last meeting here for a while, so it'll be at 2400 Springbrook. Just make note of that. So if you do come to a city council meeting in the next few months, it's not going to be here at the forum. And then I just wanted to give a shout out to Chief Liggett. I know this will be your last firework presentation. I will definitely miss those. That'll be one of the things I'll miss the most about you. Known you for a long time, and best of luck to you.
Thank you, Vice President Anderson. And I echo that you will be missed, Chief Liggett, and thank you for your many years of service. You're retiring. You're not leaving. You will come back, right? Okay. First, I want to begin by thanking our Department of Public Works. for all their hard work because our city really looks beautiful. You are staying on top of things despite the rain and changing weather conditions and construction projects. And to all our city staff who keep our operations going daily, please know your work is appreciated. So many thanks to each of you. We know that our city streets there's a lot of construction going on, and so I ask that you please be patient and drive carefully. Now, in regard to counselor activities, I had the opportunity to attend the Beloit Literacy for Life Initiative recognition banquet on June 20th. Special thanks to Tara Tender and Bill Flanagan for leading this effort. Literacy is truly the most important skill an individual must develop to be successful in personal, educational, and career pursuits. Learning begins when a child is born. So let's talk to our kids, let's play with our kids, and most importantly, let's read to them. And speaking of that, I had a chance to deliver some books to the YMCA daycare with my granddaughter, Maya Grace. It was wonderful to see so many small children get so excited about reading, so we have to work together to keep that going. Also, I had a chance to attend Music at Harry's Place. Special thanks to the Friends of the Riverfront, Jennifer Codal, and our city staff for making it a success. It was well attended with over 300 people, so the rain didn't hinder the event at all. Also, I was honored to join our city manager and councilors at the Walter Knight Bridge dedication ceremony, along with my fellow councilors on Saturday. And I must say that I was really touched that Mr. Knight remembered the question that I had asked him about a week ago. It was, and I hate that Mr. Knight left because I wanted him to hear this, I asked him what had he done that was significant while serving on the council. Now, he came with a list, which I was very surprised about at the event. And these were some. His major accomplishments: he was on city council from 1972 to 1985. They were as follows: the Industrial Park, Telfair Park Pavilion, the minor league baseball team, purchase of the sanitation trucks, the Dr. Hilliard Park on Athletic Avenue, the southeast side, the Reverend U.S. Pride Park on Shore Drive, the west side, Shopco Development, Walmart Development, new City Hall referendum, the new City Hall building, the casino referendum, the Kmart development, and the Woodman Supermarket. So those were the significant things that Mr. Knight was involved in. So I just want to say from my heart, thank you, Mr. Knight, for your service and for paving the way for not only me, but for others. And speaking of that, I also joined our city manager, councilors, and staff at the Juneteenth celebration, which was also on Saturday at Telfair Park. So we were all doing double duty. Kudos to the YWCA and the elite ladies for bringing this event back. This was an event to commemorate the liberation of slaves in Texas on June 19, 1865, 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. At the celebration, I was privileged to introduce Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, who is the first African-American lieutenant governor for the state of Wisconsin. Also, it was great to see our first responders there, and our police officers were there, so personable, and even joined in a funny photo with me. So, Chief, you'll have to tell them about that. They were right up front, talking with our youth and community members. The guys did a really good job. I also want to say a special thank you to former Councilor Dave Lukey for hosting the Welcome Home ceremony to recognize the Vietnam veterans and their families, which will be held on Thursday, July 4th at Riverside Park, beginning at 5 o'clock p.m. Many thanks and blessings go out to all our veterans for their service and sacrifice. Let's continue to honor these brave men and women. And last but not least, have fun and a safe 4th of July. With that said, we'll go on to item 11A.
Madam President, if there is no objection, we've been in contact with our presenter for item 11A, and there's a traffic event on I-90, so she'll be here as soon as we can. Can we possibly just move that to when she comes and just keep going with the agenda?
And then we'll go on to 11B.
Yeah, so 11B is the 4th of July safety presentation by Chief Liggett.
Chief Liggett and Chief Zabowski. So I'm hearing that we'll get a presentation about the 4th of July safety.
Yes.
just before you guys start talking, I want you to know when I was talking about shooting fireworks last week, I wasn't going to actually shoot fireworks, I was going to take pictures of them.
We're already collecting it. All right. Good evening. I wanted to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about fireworks safety. First off, fireworks is a right or a privilege. That's a really important statement because this is a privilege that's given to us by the state statutes to utilize consumer fireworks in our community. Not all consumer fireworks are equal, and I'm going to explain a little bit about that today. Our local ordinance is 14.03 that permits us to utilize fireworks and sell fireworks in the city of Beloit. The state gives us that authority through its state statute. Now, what applies here is common sense. We have to utilize some common sense when purchasing fireworks and utilizing fireworks for our enjoyment over the 4th of July holiday. And with that common sense comes safety. Safety has to be the highest priority, and then we also have to recognize that even though we're enjoying this privilege to utilize some fireworks, we also have to understand that we're citizens and we have neighbors, and we have to be friendly to our neighbors. I'm all about celebrating patriotism. I understand I've fought for my country. I've served this community for 30 years as a firefighter and fire chief, and I'm all about patriotism. And I understand that's one of the ways that we can celebrate that patriotism is spending our time with our family and celebrating the freedoms that we have. Blowing up ourselves with fireworks isn't exactly the most patriotic act. Obviously, we're recognizing the significance of those bombs bursting in air through the fireworks show and celebrating that long history, that proud history of our independence. But it doesn't mean that we're not patriotic if we don't like fireworks, all right? So, moving on, our Beloit ordinance is more restrictive than the statute. Our Beloit ordinance does not allow the sale to minors or possession of fireworks by minors, where the state statute does allow a minor to buy or possess a firework. So our fireworks vendors are well versed and understand that they cannot sell or give possession to minors of fireworks. No permit fireworks are allowed to be used in the city. Now, what's a permit firework? I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit later. If it goes up or blows up, that's a permit firework, and you can't use those in the city. We don't sell permits to allow you to use them. Some in the past, many of you may have experienced a time when we allowed the vendors to sell those permits. Those permits were determined by the Attorney General to be illegal. Only a municipality can issue those permits. A vendor cannot. So that's one of the things that we stopped, a practice we stopped after I became fire chief. Now, if you do purchase a permit in another community, let's say it's New Glarus or someone else is purchasing a permit, you have to go to their area and set off the fireworks in their area. You can't set them off. Buy a permit in New Glarus and then come back and blow them up in Beloit. All right? Just want to make that perfectly clear, because that does happen around the state. You walk in, you buy a permit at the local municipality, they go buy fireworks, whatever they want to load in their trunk, bring it back to Beloit and try to set it off. That's illegal also. So, illegal sales, right? Sometimes people sell fireworks. You have to have a permit to sell fireworks in the city. You either have a 30-day permit for a tent, or you have a whole year's facility permit. It's very similar to what you see at Cornelius or amusement brokers or Phantom Fireworks. Those are all permanent facilities. They have to meet some very specific safety requirements, storage, and then access to folks. They have security also on site to prevent any accidental ignition. We've had situations in the past where illegal fireworks were sold out of the back of a truck, like a show firework. If you see those brown wrapped fireworks in the picture in the presentation, those are show fireworks, and the type that we would look at during the Beloit fireworks show. Those have been sold out of the back of a truck. In the past, we utilized our friends from the ATF in Milwaukee to help crack down on that, and they did locate the truck in Rock Township and take it out of service. What we need you to do is report illegal sales. I did have a illegal sales situation show up to me on Facebook today. I have a citizen send me a screenshot of some illegal sales that were going on in city. I forwarded the chief so that he can have his officers work on that problem and help us keep that those illegal sales down. Now, about the 4th of July show. Let's talk a little bit about that real quick. Don't bring your fireworks to the 4th of July. All right? That's what the professionals are for. Leave your fireworks at home. If you have fountains or cones or snakes or smoke bombs, anything like that, don't bring them to the show. You can't actually bring, it's in state law prohibits that. What you're allowed to bring to the show, the only thing you're allowed to bring is a sparkler. All right? And we'll talk a little bit more about sparkler safety later. Bring your comfortable chairs, bring some yard games, bring some food, bring some music, and enjoy the weather. Be patient and enjoy the show. Also, when you're done, remember, this is a public area. If we're bringing in things like food and refreshments, things like that, clean up after yourself when you're done to keep our city beautiful. Some helpful hints if you are going to select fireworks, some things that'll let you know whether or not they're legal. Also, if you're out shopping with a neighbor or a friend and you can see that someone's selling an illegal firework, here's a way to tell whether it's legal or not. Typically, we look for the Safe and Sane label. That's the one on the top. And that is typically from the state of California. And if you see that Safe and Sane label, that's typically something that's legal in the state of Wisconsin for a Wisconsin resident to use. Also, you'll see different labels like caution, or it may say shoot flaming balls or something like that. Those types of things are illegal. All right? A caution label is legal. The warning labels are not. So it's important to read them. Caution label is legal, warning label is not. So let's talk about what's legal without a permit. Sparklers, not exceeding 36 inches in length. All right? We'll talk about sparkler safety in a minute. I know that's a huge sparkler. I don't want my 3-year-old running around with that sparkler. So, stationary sparkling cones and fountains. All right, those are all things that are legal in the city of Beloit for use. Toy snakes and smoke bombs, those are all legal. And since I put this presentation together, also the tanks that move across the ground, cars that move across the ground, those kinds of things are also now legal. Snaps, poppers, and confetti makers are all legal for use. All right? What's illegal in Beloit? Firecrackers, salutes, bottle rockets, anything that blows up, M80s. All right? Those are all illegal. Also, if it goes up, Roman candles, mortars, bottle rockets, all those types of things are illegal for use in the city. The other thing is some spinners, things that spin on the ground are okay. Those are legal, but things that spin in the air are not. You'll see these sold at your local fireworks vendor, and they nail them to a tree, or they nail them to a telephone pole, or they nail them to a park. I saw it nailed to one of our park shelters here in Beloit one year, and they were setting it off, and they could ignite obviously the park shelter for it by doing something like that. So it's really important to make sure that you're only utilizing something that's legal. Now, common sense. Fire department and your community, by the law, really doesn't want you to use fireworks, period. All right? In 2017, there were over 18,000 injuries to fireworks. There were 8 deaths, and $93 million in damage as a result of fires. All right? $900 million in sales in fireworks, and our injury rates have stayed the same. So, increase in usage, injuries have stayed the same. We're either being safer or the fireworks are getting safer. There's no really any way to figure out what's going on. But how much is acceptable? How many injuries are acceptable? How many burns are acceptable? How many eye injuries are acceptable? None. So our goal is to reduce the usage of fireworks. But common sense is our public's going to use fireworks. So Make sure you're open air on a flat surface, no loose clothing. Wear your shoes, not sandals, because that's one of the most common ways kids get burned. They have sandals or no shoes on at all. Don't hold them in your hand. Don't use them near things that can burn for grass. Wear safety glasses if you're igniting them or using them. Only ignite one device at a time. Never allow children to light them. Use a long tip lighter. Don't drink and use fireworks. All right, very important. I know it's the 4th of July. It's okay to have an adult beverage. I don't blame you, but don't be the one lighting the fireworks. Don't stand over the fireworks. Don't disassemble them and try to ignite them. And don't try to make your own. That has happened too here in Beloit. Don't try to light duds. And have water available to put out a fire if one occurs. And then never, ever, ever, ever aim a firework at another person. Now remember, not everybody likes fireworks. I particularly enjoy fireworks. I enjoy going to the fireworks show, spending that time with my family. All right? I let the professionals do it. I'm not going to try to light some fireworks. I just want to go enjoy the show with you all, and it's typically a very nice time. But remember that our pets are pretty adverse to that, and they get panicky and nervous, and they don't like it. And then also the mess that it leaves in our community afterwards. Clean up after yourselves, please. Clean up after yourselves for our public works. The folks don't have to do it. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about is sparklers. I know that sparklers are a pretty common thing, and you'll see young children flipping sparklers around and that sort of thing. But sparklers, they burn at 1,300 to 3,000 degrees, or 1,800 to 3,000 degrees. They're 16% of all of our injuries, and 57% of all fireworks injuries are children under 5. Sparklers are designed to be placed in the ground and then ignited. They're not designed to be held in the hand and twirled around, especially when a young child is not wearing any safety glasses. They may have loose clothing or bare skin. They may not have anything on their feet. Remember, those sparks are 1,800 to 3,000 degrees, and you can imagine how that might feel on a foot. So even though it may seem to be the most benign of our fireworks, it is the most common way a child is injured. So, do you have any questions for me?
Any other questions? Counselor Levy?
Not any questions. I think you covered everything and pretty much just telling us to just cook out.
And enjoy the fireworks.
I mean, enjoy the show.
Can you imagine the fireworks show if we spent $903 million on our fireworks show? It might be 2 or 3 weeks long.
Yeah. So, but no, what I wanted to say is I didn't get an opportunity to say it, but good luck, Brad, on your retirement. And it's not like Regina, I know you said he'll be coming back, but he'll be across the border in Freeport. He'll be a pretzel now. But no, we wish you well. It's been great, serving with you when I've been on the council. So good luck, and we just wanted to say that. And he is having a reception on Friday.
Yes.
A luncheon at that, so.
Yes, I'd enjoy to have all you there. Bring your white shirts because we're having spaghetti. Right? And I'd enjoy having your company there on Friday. I appreciate that very much. And it's been an absolute honor to serve this community for all of these years. And I'm very blessed. My family's very blessed. And it's tough. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wish you well, Chief. Thank you very much for that presentation. Now, I believe the other lady had arrived, our speaker. So, let me see. Let's go back to 11A.
We have the 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our Finance Director, Eric Miller, will provide a report.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. So each year, the City of Beloit is required to conduct an independent audit in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We work very closely with our auditors, Baker Tilly, throughout the entire year as well as throughout the whole audit process in order to prepare a comprehensive annual financial report. And so with that, I would like to introduce Carla Gogan with Baker Tilly, and she will run through the CAFR presentation.
Good evening, and thank you. I am Carla Gogan with Baker Tilly. Thank you for adjusting the agenda. It was a little bit of an adventure getting here tonight. Normally it takes me about an hour, and it was a 2.5-hour drive, so thank you. So in terms of what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to go through some of the financial benchmarks similar to what we've done in the past, but I do see some new faces on the council. I do welcome questions as we go, so if there's something that you want to delve into, please feel free to jump in. We have issued the financial statements in final. We've issued our audit opinion, which is what you hire us to do. And we did issue an unmodified opinion, or in other words, a clean audit opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that you can receive. It's what you've received in the past. It's what you should expect to receive. I think one thing is, I'm speaking with you, and what's really important is, as the governing body, it's your job really to set the tone at the top for the organization to question things that are coming before you. And as we're developing our audit plan, we do develop a risk-based audit approach. And so it's important that as a part of the process, if there's something that you think we need to know about as the city's auditors, to feel free to reach out. And I've included my contact information in the presentation, so I encourage you to reach out if, again, you have questions or concerns. So do I just press? There we go. So tonight, again, we're going to go through some benchmarks, starting with the general fund. Your general fund is your main operating fund of the city, and I'm going to delve into some of the details on some subsequent slides. But we start with the fund balance of the city. The fund balance is the equity for the city, so it's your assets, which are primarily liquid in nature, cash and receivables, less payables, and what you have left is fund balance. There's 3 different categories of fund balance, non-spendable being monies that are not readily liquid. And so the largest portion of this is related to an advance to Gulf, and that's existed for some time, about $1 million. And then the city does have inventory of just over $500,000, which you're not in the business of selling inventory, so you're not really looking to liquidate that. For restricted fund balance, you have some bridge maintenance funds that are restricted, and then your unassigned. And you'll see your unassigned did go up. And if you look at the bottom of the page, you'll see that you had budgeted basically a flat budget, meaning you weren't anticipating to draw down on your fund balance, but you weren't anticipating that you were going to add to fund balance either. So always good news when you see a positive add to fund balance of about $560,000. And I'll talk about that in more detail on a subsequent slide. One metric, though, we do look at in the middle of the page is we look at your unassigned fund balance, and those are monies that don't necessarily have strings attached to it, but it is important to have a healthy unassigned fund balance. As you go out and you do your debt issuances each year, one thing they are looking at is how does your fund balance look? What is your unassigned fund balance position? And one metric we look at is we compare that to the next year's operating budget, and you have about 28%. It did go up from 2017. Another metric we take a look at is your debt position. And so the city does have general obligation debt outstanding, and this debt is secured by the taxing authority of the city. And one of the reasons why you're able to enjoy the interest rates that you do is because the bondholders know that you have the ability to levy taxes in order to pay that debt back. And that's compared to your GO debt capacity. And we'll look at a metric that'll look at some trend analysis, not just what the position was at the end of 2018. But your GO debt capacity, you're limited by 5% of your equalized value, and that's set by state statute. So you're at about 60% of your debt capacity, and we'll look at a slide in a moment where we'll look at the trend there. One thing I would like to call out, again, if we kind of retrace our steps, again, healthy fund balance position, you had the increase for the year. We'll look at some metrics for GO debt, but the other is internal service funds, and you have 4 internal service funds, and you'll see that it is at a deficit at the end of 2018, close to $2 million. And the 2 drivers of that are your self-funded health insurance fund, a deficit of about $2 million, and then you have the retiree health insurance fund. And the retiree health insurance fund typically you're anticipating trying to have a flat year, meaning you're charging departments back for what you expect your costs to be. And in the retiree health fund for this year, it had a deficit of close to $1 million. And so that contributed to that increase from 17 to 18. So that's just something to keep your eyes on. You don't have a lot of control over the kind of claims history you have, but it is important to, make sure that you're charging back what you need to recover those costs. So here's where we're going to look at some trend analysis. This is the fund balance trends for the last 5 years. Non-spendable being at the top, and I apologize for those looking at the screen, that's pretty small font. But non-spendable stayed pretty flat, about 1.6 million. Your unassigned, though, this is the highest it's been in 5 years, grew from about 7.7 million over the last 5 years to just over 9 million. And you can see there's an decrease at the very bottom of the page. So those are good trends. This just talks about in more detail, I talked a bit earlier about the different types of fund balance. And then we're going to look at some budget to actual results, and I have some explanations on the next page. But when I talked about, if you look at the third line up from the bottom, you'll see that net change in fund balance, or how your fund balance increased about $560,000, whereas you had budgeted essentially to stay the same in terms of fund balance. And there's some drivers to that. Really, your revenues, you are right on budget. You came in under about 52,000, but you had some that were over budget. For example, you had some increases in construction permits, so you'll see that was a positive variance. But then you'll see in terms of fines, that was down from the year before. And investment income, there you have a situation where you had some unrealized losses. You're invested in some things in the market, and if you hold to maturity, which you do, that resolves itself. But in a year like we had, especially at the end of the year, there was an unrealized loss at the end of the year. But in the end, really close to budget on the revenues, and when you're talking $30 million and it was 50,000, pretty darn good. And then you walk down the page to expenditures. Again, you had budgeted $30.9 million in expenditures in the general fund. You came in at $30.3 million. You had in public works, we're under budget, just some under budget for contracted services, some vehicle maintenance and fuel costs. That's really the biggest driver. And then some reduction in general government related to licenses and permits. So again, that's where your biggest driver is, that you had different function areas that came in under budget. Questions before I move on? This just lists in detail some of those variance explanations. But any questions before I have one last slide on the GO debt capacity? Okay. As I mentioned, I was going to talk about trends. This shows your GO debt versus capacity. So the top line is your GO capacity, and you'll see actually the third line up from the bottom shows your equalized value, and then the percent growth at the bottom. So from 13 to 14, you were down by about 8.5%, 8.6%, but then you're going to see you had some nice increases to 15, 16, and now to 18. And then you'll see your GO debt outstanding has stayed really flat, and actually has come down over the years. So nice management of outstanding debt. So I'm going to shift gears away from your governmental funds, which what we were just talking about, those are financed primarily with tax dollars and intergovernmental revenues. We're going to shift gears and talk about the enterprise funds of the city, and they're supported primarily by the user fees that you're charging to your utilities. And the first being the water utility, and overall water sales were down. We've talked about this in the past, just with conservation efforts. People are putting in, fixtures and so forth that use less water, so they're trying to control, again, their water bill that way. But then there's a lot of fixed costs associated with providing water services. You'll see operating revenues, they did jump in 2017. You did have a rate increase in 2017. The water utility is a regulated regulated utility, so it's regulated by the Public Service Commission. So anytime you need to go in for a rate increase, you need their approval to do so. And then revenues did go up slightly by less than 1%. Expenses, however, did go up, and that was due to some water main breaks and some hydrant and service line replacements and repairs. So the three metrics we look at are on the bottom. The first being unrestricted cash, and you were just under 3 months. We recommend a minimum of 3 months in unrestricted cash on hand. This just does provide you some flexibility when you have those water main breaks, and we had some tough times over the winter where it got really cold. And so by having some of that unrestricted cash on hand, it just provides you flexibility in terms of those types of repairs. So that's something we would encourage you to monitor. Your rate of return, as I mentioned, you are regulated by the PSC, and they essentially give you a certain rate that you can earn on your investment in your water plant. And they tell you you have an authorized rate of return of about 5%, and your return was 3.4%. And the reason why that was lower than your authorized was because of that increase in expenses during 18. The last metric we look at is your debt coverage. We talked about geo debt and that being secured by the taxing authority. The water utility also has revenue bonds, and the revenue bond holders, what secures that debt are the revenue stream associated with the utility. And so written into your bond document is a requirement that you have to have a certain debt coverage when you look at your revenues compared to your operating costs, and you were in excess of what was required. So that's good. That's just something that the bond raters would monitor. Then we move on to the sewer utility. Oftentimes, volume bill, that's going to follow trends in the water. So if your water sale is down in water, often you're going to find the same in sewer. And you will see that the volume bill did go down by about 2%, but overall relatively consistent. You did have flat revenues from 17 to 18 and really consistent expenses from 17 to 18 as well. The sewer utility is not regulated, so that is something that you're able to control the rates that are issued or implemented for the sewer utility. Here, a much stronger unrestricted cash position. You have just over 13 months of unrestricted cash, which is positive because, again, we'd recommend at least that 3-month minimum, but even up to a year's worth of capital. So again, if you have repairs or things that come up, you're not always looking to borrow for it. You can use some of that unrestricted cash on hand. And again, the sewer utility does have some debt outstanding, but it is meeting its debt coverage. The storm utility, here again, you can see from the graphic, I think it shows it quite well, is very consistent for the last 3 years, actually, from 16 to 18. And if we look down below, you have about 10 months of unrestricted cash, almost 11 actually. And then again, you are meeting your debt coverage for the storm. So very consistent results from 17 to 18. And then the last metric is transit. We are seeing ridership down, and that's pretty consistent with lower gas prices and just with a stronger economy. It's not uncommon to see ridership decline. You do have a stable mix of revenues, where the revenues are coming from, and you did have an increase in expenses, and that had to do with some wage adjustments. But overall, solid results. I would say no surprises. The city does a really nice job getting ready for the audit. It's no small undertaking. If you've taken a look at your full CAFR, it's no small document. So we do audit the financial results. We also do, to the federal and state funding that the city receives, we do perform an audit or compliance work over the grant funding that you receive as well. So we're doing that work as well. So again, really want to commend and thank the city for all their preparedness and getting ready for the audit process. But I'd welcome any questions that you have over any of the metrics that we've gone over tonight or any of the other reports that you've received.
Any other questions? Comments? Go ahead, Councilor Forbeck.
I'm not sure if this should go to you or to Eric.
Sure.
But I believe that our rating is A+.
Yes.
What is higher than A+?
It goes up to a AAA.
Okay.
So there's incremental steps that go up from A+. So it would be an A+, then it would go to a triple or a double B minus, or double A minus, double A plus, triple A. It goes kind of up that ladder, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much, Ms. Goggin, for coming this afternoon, and you made it through that, so thank you. And we were talking about that earlier. We said we have to practice patience, right?
Right, well, and I was at the Wisconsin Policy Forum luncheon where the city was recognized for the great work you're doing at the library. So I'm thinking next year, I'm just going to park myself at the library all day, and that way I will be local and close when it comes time to the presentation.
I usually come down 213, go down Fish Hatchery, go over.
Sure.
I skip all that I-90 stuff going to
Yeah,
Madison.
it was an adventure. So thank you again for your willingness to move things around on the agenda.
Yes. And thank you very much, and thank you, Eric, too, for all your hard work in putting that together. Thank you so much. Okay, now we'll go on to 12A.
Consideration of Resolution 2019-79 approving the 2019 Community Development Block Grant substantial amendment to the 2019 Annual Action Plan and Budget.
The Community Development Director, Julie Christensen, will provide a summary.
Which health it's in? I moved it. That might be mine. So on November 5th of last year, you approved the annual action plan and the 2019 Community Development Block Grant budget. So we received word that we were receiving $60,719 more than what the city budgeted. In addition, we have $247,400 of prior year unspent CDBG funding and program income that must be programmed and to try to get spent this year. Since the budget difference is more than 10%, our public participation plan requires us to do a substantial amendment. The Community Development Authority reviewed this on May 22nd, and their recommendations are included in the staff report, which is to fund Merrill neighborhood cleanup. So we're going to fund 5 NARSA activities for a total of $276,495. Merrill neighborhood cleanup for $4,000, Hackett neighborhood cleanup $4,000, which will be done with a partnership with City of Beloit and Community Action. And Mark Perry is here tonight if you have any questions for him. An additional $50,000 for the Resources Navigator because they're doing such a great job with this that they need additional funds. $85,000 for Merrill Center improvements, and $133,495 for a Summit Park splash pad. And then in addition, there's $5,000 to fair housing, $26,624 for program administration. And then all of these things, if approved, the narrative will be updated to reflect that. And then also in your packet was this huge annual action plan, which is a HUD template. And that is on your agenda as well as the budget tonight. And at your last meeting, you held the public hearing. And so tonight is your time to take action on the budget and plan amendment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Christensen. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and is there a second?
Who'd you take for the motion?
I got Blakely for the motion. I have a second by Prussia.
I made the motion,
Okay.
Blakely seconded.
Okay,
Blakely
got it.
made the motion. You seconded.
No, I said it first.
No, I said it first.
Okay, we will.
I raised my hand.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion?
I just had a comment I wanted to make sure.
I did
wanted to
too.
make
You go
clear.
ahead and comment.
Okay, Julie already knows, but we're doing 2 splash pads, and this is enabling us to do both. One in the Vernon Park and one in the Summit Park. And they're going to be substantially the same, am I correct? Okay, thank you.
And I just wanted to thank Mark and for being here tonight, and also for what you're doing at Community Action. It's just amazing. And then I'm so glad that we got these more additional dollars to go towards programs such as Community Action. And also, I hear so many times, they're doing so many different areas. They're doing the east side, but I'm happy that we're having the cleanup so everybody will know that on both sides of town, on the east side and on the west side, in the Merrill neighborhood and in the Hackett neighborhood. So we are working harder to make sure we're improving our entire city. So just so you know that. Okay, so we have a motion by, I have it recorded as Blakely, and a second by Preschel. So with that, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? With that said, motion carries. Next, 12B.
Consideration of Resolution 2019-93 authorizing and supporting the City of Beloit's 2019 Build Grant application.
City Manager Luther.
Thank you. As we discussed at our last meeting with the cooperative agreement between the Ho-Chunk Nation and the city, we are moving forward to submit our application for a build grant in the amount of about $16.5 million. The Ho-Chunk Nation has graciously offered $4.4 million towards local match, and the remaining $12.5 million would be the federal grant if we are successful. So the resolution before you this evening is a combination of both the formal authorization to submit this grant application and indicating the city's support in this grant application. We will be soliciting a number of letters of support from our representatives and senators, et cetera. This is obviously very important to the future development of the Ho-Chunk Nation's large entertainment destination project. And this is primarily for the improvements to both Willowbrook and Collie Road. So I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. The official deadline is July 15th of this month. We will be submitting prior to that deadline, but again are still working to secure letters of support, which will be sent separately from the application, and some last minute details.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Preschel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Forbeck. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, we have 13, adjournment. So, is there, wow, that was fast. We have a motion by Councilor Levy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Forbeck. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are now adjourned.
I did.